Hi, welcome back, everyone. This is Authors on the Air, part of the Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and I'm Jim Latwell, your host for today's session. And we're very lucky to have with us T. Jefferson Parker, and he's going to talk about his newest novel, Desperation Reef. And yeah, the buzz is already out there on this one. It's been out for what, maybe a week now, Jeff?
Just a week.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, if you haven't run across this author or these books, I don't know where you've been hiding because I think this is number 30
hmm
um, in your novels. Jeff is a three-time Edgar Award nominee, which by itself is just amazing. Or winner, not nominee, but winner, three-time Edgar Award winner, and LA Book Prize. And you can't pick up a novel that he's written without just immersing yourself in just a fantastic world. The Rescue was last year, and now Desperation Reef. Um, just fantastic, Jeff. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. It's nice to be here, Jim.
Good to see you. Can you tell folks a little bit about the story in Desperation Reef?
Yeah, I can. I can do a real brief little synopsis of it, just a sentence or two. Desperation Reef is about Southern California big wave surfers battling it out with smuggling pirates along the California coast.
Yeah, and that's exactly how it jumps into the book. I mean, you grew up in Southern California, and you lived in a little bit of that surf culture. Um, and Desperation Reef kind of unfolds a family of surfers and people who were into that lifestyle. Did you run across that kind of environment down there with people that were that, just passionate about surfing and the coast and the environment?
Well, yeah. I grew up near the beach in suburban Tustin, California, which is 10 miles from the beach. So, and this was a long time ago. And I knew a lot of surfers. My brother surfed a lot. I surfed a little tiny bit, not much. But I grew up on the edge of surf culture, if you will, in the late '60s, early '70s. And what strikes me about the surfers, the culture I encountered back then, and the culture that I'm writing about in Desperation Reef is the fact that the surfers now, the big wave surfers, are riding waves that are double, triple, quadruple the size of the ones that I was aware of, breaking even in Hawaii back in the '60s. Around 1994, say early '90s, this cadre of young surfers, some of them were Californians, mostly Hawaiians, we're beginning to discover breaks all around the world, surf breaks that had waves that were too big and too fast to catch, but too perfect to pass up, to try, And so they
Yeah.
finally found that they could get into these waves by being towed in by a buddy on a jet ski. And the buddy on the jet ski would head up the face of this 50, 60-foot breaking wave, leap over the top on the jet ski, to safety on the other side of the wave. And the surfer would let go of the rope and turn and try to make the drop into this 35-mile-an-hour monster, and survive, basically. Survive, one, and two, ride the wave. So the culture has changed because the waves have changed and the methods have changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of amazing when you look back at some of those old surf competitions that used to be on the weekend TV on ESPN and stuff. It's nothing like that now. It's I mean, these are monster, like you said, monster big waves, and it's a whole different
Yeah.
world.
Yes.
Now, your book kind of centers around the Stonebreaker family. Did you know many generational families where that was just part of life,
Yeah.
growing up down there?
Yeah, you see it everywhere. The fathers and the sons and the grandfathers and the kids. They're all, yeah. The surf culture is really runs through the bloodlines often. I saw that just on the very little block that I lived on in Tustin. We had surfers who were sons of surfers who were sons of surfers, and
Uh,
it's still going on. It's a funny thing that gets into your blood, or it doesn't. But surfing is one of those things that provides a feeling and a circumstance that's really kind of unparalleled in most sports anyway. I mean, there's always thrills and danger and that kind of thing. But something about surfing gets into a person's blood, and it brings them back for more and more and more. And when I was talking to the big wave surfers for this book, they all seem to kind of say the same thing about, why do you do this? Why do you try to catch 80-foot waves that can kill you? And I say,
Yeah.
well, it's a little hard to describe, but basically, I think that it's the biggest thrill that I've ever gotten. It's the highest high that you can get, and that's why I go back to do it time and time again. And so I admire that. I admire that, and I know what it's like to be tucked back into the deep barrel of a good sized wave on my body or my knee board, and it's utterly thrilling. You almost feel like you're getting away with something that's unnatural. It's so exciting.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the two main characters that we kind of follow through the book are the brothers, Casey and Brock. And you've done such a great job with we open up and you get to know Casey, I mean, just immediately, and what he's about and where his passions lie. These two brothers are very different, but they also have some commonalities. How did you come up with these two guys to populate this book with?
Yeah, good question. Jim, I when I go back and look at my books, there's 29 of them now. I'm struck by how many times I've used the Abel and Cain story and from the Bible, and this is still another one. I've always been fascinated by the idea that two brothers or sisters, close relations, siblings, can be, according to the biblical version anyway, one can be blessed by God and the other can be cursed by God. And it doesn't have anything to do with what they do or how they talk or how they behave. It's just that God likes this one, but he doesn't like that one. And so you get enmity between brothers. And I think that's fascinating stuff. And, Casey and Brock are not Cain and Abel, really. They don't despise each other at all.
Right.
They love each other, but they're very different. And Brock makes no bones about calling down Casey for his religious beliefs, his attitudes, his gestures, the way he dresses, his haircut, everything, And Casey feels that Brock is in many ways superior to him, and yet they are both equally pitted as big wave surfers. They're number like 4 and 5 in the world, and they're headed towards a contest that takes place at the end of this book, which is called The Monsters of Mavericks, and that is where they will face each other on common ground, if you will. These waves.
Yeah. Yeah, this I mentioned it earlier, but this came up. Your story and these two characters came up. I was teaching a session at Book Passage at the Mystery Writers Conference, and this was used as an example of characters that are just so well developed that the reader I mean, they're invested in these two characters and where their story goes, and they want to know more. So, I mean, it's so well done, and I really enjoyed their stories as we're going through this.
Those are good words.
I
Thank
thought
you.
was
Means a lot to me.
my pleasure. Are you kidding? What I really thought was neat was how you incorporated Jen, their mother, into the storyline, and how that kind of threads through the book up to that final contest at Mavericks. I thought that was really a nice suspense and tension that came through the book.
Good. Yeah, I really kind of framed Jen Stonebreaker. She's 46 when the book begins, and 21 when the book very begins. But suddenly we're forward in time, and I framed her purposefully as I wanted to write a female. I wanted to write a woman protagonist, and I wanted to write about big wave surfing just because it scares me so much, and so I set poor Jen in the world of professional big wave surfing. As a 21-year-old, she's accomplished. She can ride. She competes in the Monsters of Mavericks 24 years ago, once the book is opened. And at that contest, her beloved husband, John, who's favored to win the contest, possibly, dies. He drowns on a gigantic wave that she tows him into and fails to get him out of when he's in trouble in the impact zone, being pounded by the waves over this very shallow reef at Mavericks. So, the idea of anyone surfing these kind of waves for thrills and what little money you actually get is fascinating to me and impressive to me, and even more so, I think, when it's a woman who is they're lighter, they don't quite have the the muscle mass that a male has. They're just taking on a nearly impossible task and making it even more impossible. And Jen's very good at it, and women are very good at it. Not too long ago, just 4 or 5 years ago, the world's record for the largest wave successfully surfed was held by Maya, I forget her last name, a woman out of Brazil. And women make great big wave surfers. So anyway, it's sort of the book is kind of a nod to all of them.
Yeah, no, that comes across very, very well. Now, other movies that I'm thinking of that kind of encapsulate some of the surf culture, like Point Break. That didn't have kind of a true ring to me that your book did, and it kind of portrayed the surfing community as kind of cutthroat, and out to get one another. How 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 dirty is it, and how dark is it? Between the surfers.
Oh, that's a real good question. On the local level of surf as turf, it's cutthroat. I mean, it's cutthroat from La Jolla all the way up to the ranch and beyond. Mavericks everywhere. The locals own the waves, and if you're not a local, bad things can happen. Some places are better than others. Some places you get cussed out or dissed or whatever, and some places you get your car tires slashed, and some places you get beat up. So on that level, it's cutthroat's a good word for it. On the professional big wave level that I write about in this book, it's not that. I mean, there are undercurrents of gossip and resentment perhaps between certain surfers and certain nationalities that really, when all is said and done, those guys are out there, guys and women are out there doing something so dangerous that you just can't be cutthroat.
Yeah.
The standard operating procedure for big wave surfers at a place like Mavericks is when somebody takes a wave and doesn't make the drop, goes down, goes under, people stop. They stop and they start looking, and as soon as the impact zone is clear, they paddle over as fast as they can, and they look and they pull people out of there all the time. So it's not every man for himself out there at all at that level. It's I'll help you survive.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really something.
Yeah. The draw to big wave surfers. I mean, you captured it earlier when you said that ultimate thrill. But man, what a risk these people take in doing this.
Yeah, the risk is incredible, and one of the prime motivators for me in setting this book in the world of big wave surfing is a place in California, Mavericks, which is south of San Francisco, Half Moon Bay, which is where tow-in surfing was developed. And that wasn't the only place, but the Mavericks break was perfect for it because Mavericks breaks huge. It can break 40, 50, 60 feet. The reef is really shallow. The rocks are rocks, they can kill you. The water is so cold, you have to wear a 5 millimeter neoprene wetsuit just to go out and come back. And even at that, you can't feel your feet and your hands. And to top it all off, here you are trying to catch or drop into a 60-foot wave in freezing water with rocks visible below, and the water's full of great white sharks. They love it up there. So I mean, every single horrifying thing to me is included in that, And,
exactly.
Yeah, it can't be any scarier, So
Man.
the book is very much about fear. It's about Jen's dealing with fear, not fear of the unknown, fear of the known. Fear of the wave killed her husband, fear of the currents, the rocks, all of that stuff, fear and this sense of responsibility and regret that will not leave her year after year after year because she blames herself for what happened to him. And it's about the fear of overcoming that kind of disbelief.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to capture it is that fear. And now her sons are both going forward in that same place, same competition. So as a mom going through her mind, that must just be excruciating. So
yeah, it is. It killed her, but she doesn't want to hold him back.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, there's a theme that kind of runs through the book, and it kind of surrounds that piracy angle that you talked about early on, and that was, there's bad people doing bad things, finning sharks and that kind of thing. How how closely do the surf community get involved in that kind of melee that's going on out there? Because I sense there's kind of a connection between the surfer community and the ocean and the ecology of it, and that kind of thing would just kind of just light them on fire. Do you sense that kind of a connection?
Yeah, I do sense it, Jim. I can't prove it though. I'm not in the middle of any melees between the surfers and pirates at this point. But for purposes of the book, I mean, there are shark finners out there, and the people in this book, the smugglers in this book, they're not just shark finners. They're smugglers,
Yeah,
and they're traffickers in drugs and precursors for
right.
fentanyl, cocaine, you name it. I mean, they'll smuggle anything up and down the California coast. And
Yeah,
so Casey, when he's an idealistic young surfer, he's a great surfer. He's a very square guy. He's very Christian. He's very in love with God and nature, and he tries to be as pure and as honest with people as he can. And when he sees the shark finners, he just goes bonkers. He just can't believe how horrible it is to see it. And I've seen shark
yeah.
finning done. It is gruesome too.
Uh,
And so anyway, Casey sort of standing in for the surfers in general, I think, as you mentioned,
yeah,
is horrified and feels like he needs to do something about it.
yeah. No, it captured it very, very well. Um, these two brothers in particular, um, this struck me as this could be a series. Have there been any thought about making this one a series?
Um, I No, not that I know of. My editor um, signed off on another book to follow.
Okay,
I mean, I was under contract to write another book when this
right.
Desperation Reef came out, and it has nothing to do with surfing or brothers. So these people. So in that way, I suppose if people really seriously fell in love with his book and couldn't get enough of it, and my editor said, hey, you want to follow up with a sequel, I would probably do it. But there's no
Yeah,
plans for that now.
yeah. I think there's meat left on that bone that if you did go back there, people would gravitate to it. I mean, yeah, Desperation Reef. There's
Nice.
another shot at it. But yeah, it was a great story. We'll end up with what we're calling three quick hits, and I'm going to
Mhm.
ask you to put yourself in the. Actually, we'll do it twice. Put yourself in the head of Casey and Brock, and answer three quick questions.
Okay.
Um, what's Casey's favorite drink or cocktail?
Oh, he loves tangerine juice the most, and grows them in his backyard, and he squeezes it fresh, and that's his first love. And he makes Arnold Palmer's out of it instead of with lemons. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Casey for sure.
How about Brock? His favorite cocktail or drink?
Favorite cocktail? Oh God, I can't even remember. He's not a drinking man really. I mean, he likes his bourbon, but now and then. But like most big wave surfers, he can't take on too much alcohol and stay in the kind of shape you need to be in to hold your breath for 3 minutes under
Yeah,
the water, which is what they're all trying to. That's their goal. How much breath you can
yeah,
save. So anyway, he's
yeah.
not he's not much of an alcohol man. Most of the
I,
surfers
I
like
can.
their dope. They like their dope though. I mean, they're pot
Yeah,
smokers. A lot of them. Yeah, not all.
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. Now, how about Casey's favorite music? What does he listen to?
Oh, he's a Jack Johnson fanatic. He loves and anything surf based, and Jack Johnson is Casey as far as Casey's concerned. He talks about it all the time, and he tries to play it in his mom's restaurant. And Jack Johnson
Yeah.
he idolizes Jack.
Okay. How about Brock? His music.
Brock. Oh, he likes. Yeah, he's sort of a Stones man, but he's also a Bruce Springsteen man. He runs a church that he invented, and he speaks.
Yeah.
He lectures at this crazy church out in the country, a bunch of weird people attending and stuff. And he goes on these rants for 2-3 hours at a time, thinking of himself as Bruce Springsteen up there performing, but Brock's performance is haranguing people to help other people rather than put
Yeah.
faith in a God who doesn't care about them. That's his rap.
Yeah. No, that captured him very, very well. Now, finally, what's Casey's greatest fear?
Casey's greatest fear. Golly gee. What's he most afraid of? It's not waves. It's not failure. It's not death. I don't know. I don't know what he's really afraid of. I think he's afraid maybe that he's never going to find love. He's never had a woman or a partner close to him, and he I think he fears for that.
Yeah, I could see that. And how about Brock? What's his fear? What's his greatest fear?
Brock. Well, if anybody in the book, if anybody in the book is fearless, it's Brock. He is fearless. I mean, he has a violent past, not horrifically violent, but violent. Smuggler himself, and he's a pretty fearless guy. He enjoys the adrenaline rush of riding a 60-foot wave, but he also enjoys the rush of physically dominating people. He's kind of a mean guy, and he is practically fearless.
Yeah, no, that sums him up really well. Folks, we've been talking to Jefferson Parker about his newest Desperation Reef. You're going to want to catch this because it will bring you into a world that a lot of us don't see, but these characters will just make you love it and live it. So, Jeff, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on Authors on the Air.
You are very welcome, Jim. Good talking to you. I appreciate it.
Good talking to you too. You take care.
You too.